In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne, and happy 2017. We've got just a phenomenal year lined up, some amazing people that we're going to be speaking with this coming year. You want to stay tuned for each and every one of them. We're going to be kicking off this new year with author Liz Ryan. She's a former Fortune 500 Human Resources SVP and the world's most widely read career advisor. So, gosh, with so many people at the beginning of this month looking for new careers, she really is the go-to person on how to make those adjustments. Liz has worked with U.S. Robotics, has co-founded several other companies, and just the go-to person on this. Her book, Reinvention Roadmap, Break the Rules to Get the Job You Want and the Career You Deserve, is brought to us by Ben Bella Books. So welcome to the show, Liz.
Thanks, Marianne. Well, I know this book was just released in December, and what a great time of the year to be kind of looking at how to jump back into the workforce and maybe look in a new direction. And your book is like the go-to roadmap, Bible, whatever it's all that kind of piled into one.
Yeah, it's really what to do now that the nature of work has changed, the way that we get a job has changed. You know, a lot of people have been kind of rocked and buffeted by not just the recession that we've had, over the last decade, but just the difference in the way that we get jobs and hold jobs. And I felt like they didn't have a guidebook for how to navigate that stuff. I just heard from so many people that were so stuck and frustrated, and that's why I wrote the book.
Oh, well, it could be published any sooner. I think there are a lot of people that, obviously this book is just flying off the shelves. There are a lot of people that are really feeling that this book is helping them. So one of the things I found fascinating is that you talk about in your book how the new millennium workplace, how it's different finding a job in that environment than it's ever been.
So different, Marianne. I mean, you're probably younger than me. Most people are, but when I was...
I don't know about that, but...
Well, my youngest is a freshman in high school. And so a lot of my readers, I write for Forbes and LinkedIn and other publications, and a lot of the folks who read the stories, some of them are my age or a little bit older, but a lot of the folks are younger. And they're shocked because, growing up, they saw their parents or the people that they knew, maybe change jobs every 5 years, 10 years. In my day, back in my day, Marianne, my dad had the same job from the time he graduated from college until he took our early retirement. It was, a completely different working world. Yeah, now that's unheard of, unless you work in government. A police officer, something like that. You could work 35 years and retire. Now, no. Private companies, no. It's not going to happen. So how do you navigate? If we constantly are in job search mode, and if we're selling ourselves, if you will, our resumes and our experiences differently than we did before, we're really talking about, sort of what are your accomplishments and what do you have to point to. So you may have noticed the section in the book, several sections where we talk about dragon slaying stories. This is the name of the game now. What stories can you tell? Visceral stories that bring across to someone who doesn't know you what you're able to do, what you've already done. Versus in the old days, it was all about skills. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to brand themselves to say, I have negotiation skills and accounting skills and organizational skills. What does it mean? Out of context, it doesn't mean anything. So I want people to tell stories, and that's one of the things we teach in the book.
Yeah, and I thought that was a huge difference because I'm pretty sure we're of the same generation here. And I'm so used to that. That's how my resumes used to look like. You know, you'd list everything down of all the different things that you could really deal with as far as a skill set in a working environment.
Absolutely. Used to be, I call it like, you know, you would go to the talent marketplace in the old days saying, I can spin and weave and sew, Your Majesty. I can clean a grate and, you know, defeather a chicken, pluck a chicken, and I can roast a hog. Now it's not what can you do. It's not, that model is based on sort of a factory model, Henry Ford days, you know. I can turn a wrench and I can, you know, drive a forklift. I'm not sure if Henry Ford had forklifts.
Pound widgets.
You get the
whatever.
idea. Whatever. Yeah. And it was based on I possess the skill, because there were skills that you could test somebody on, and there was pretty much they had it or they didn't. Now, it's absurd. It's absurd to say I have strategic skills. What in God's name does that mean? I mean, strategy is completely different in every context, in every situation. You have to tell the story to bring it across. But the great thing is, Marianne, people have the stories. They just don't think that they do. And that's the other thing. That's the other really strong reason why I wrote this book. Because I didn't really have a lot of time to write a book. I write 3 stories a day for Forbes. I write stories for LinkedIn, Yahoo, and all kinds of guys, our own blog, and we run our business. And, you know, I have 5 kids, and I'm an opera singer. So I was not, like, sitting around looking for stuff to do, but I was deluged with mail and meeting people, going and speaking, and meeting people that said, I am just knocked down. I'm just, you know, I'm confused, and I'm stuck, and I don't know what to do. It's so hard to get a job. These blasted, you know, online application forms are disgusting. I'm a human resources person. I was a human resources VP for thousands of years. And I'm not in favor of this mechanized way of forcing job seekers to fill out a DAG, you know, online application forms. Says who did you work for and what were your tasks and duties. I mean, that's just stupid business. It's just a huge fail on the part of corporations and institutions to try to reduce brilliant, talented, multifaceted people to a few lines of, you know, keywords. It's so insulting. And it's such a broken system. I said, you know what? Let us go around this thing, go over to the side door, and that's what you do with the pain letter and the human voice resume, reaching out to your hiring manager directly. That's the way to get a job nowadays.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I don't think I know. I mean, just people feel like they get lost in that void because you enter the stuff in the internet, and then it's like, does anyone ever see it? Do I get a response? You know, as opposed to being able to connect with someone personally.
They don't see it. I mean, they have no reason to see it, because if you think about the methodology on the employer side of the desk, they put out a job ad. That's a whole travesty right there, the way we market our job opportunities, like on the side of a barn, as they say, in the marketing field. You know, they just throw it out there to the 4 winds and then complain that so many people respond. Imagine if product and service marketers marketed their products and services that badly. Nobody would say, oh, you poor thing, you're just beset and besieged by the wrong kinds of buyers, and you have to spend so much time weeding them out. No, that's bad marketing. And it's very bad marketing on the part of recruiters and HR folks when they toss these job ads out there to absolutely on any surface they can find, and then complain that so many people respond and it's such a trial for them. That's just idiotic. I'm sorry. Yeah. I did that job for years and years, and you don't market any more broadly than you need to the exact population you're trying to reach. And then, you know, because they use keyword searching algorithms to sort the wheat from the chaff, if you will, the few lucky people who are going to get an interview from the vast majority of people who are going to go into radio silence land and never hear anything. They use keywords. Well, anybody can copy a keyword from a job ad. And so the vast majority of people, you know, pass, if you will, the keyword test, and they still have too many people who are qualified, and they just interview by who knows what. First initial, who knows what, by the date that the application was received. But it's not appropriate, it's not fair, and it's not a good business process. So you have to teach people a different way. Luckily, there is a different way. You just go direct to the source.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there's so many great people that get kind of lost in that mix that they are
tragic. I mean, it's
out.
Truly a waste. It's a weird thing. Somebody wrote to me a week or two ago, and they said, you know, the talent market is kind of the only market where there's pent-up demand and supply on both sides. And it's true. Corporations, institutions are very hidebound. They're very mechanical in the way they hire people, and there's a lot of fear in that process. And so we're trying to get rid of that, to bridge that gap. And in the book, Reinvention Roadmap, I'm teaching people a much more humanistic, personal, easy, muscle-building, mojo-boosting way to get a job. But the book is not just about how to get a job, but really how to run your career with your eyes open, looking around you at the landscape and your own future and what pain employers have that you can solve. And with an entrepreneurial eye, or not, we're all entrepreneurs now.
Mhm. And that's one of the things too in your book that you discuss, and you talk about entrepreneurs, and I want to touch on that in a minute. But you also talk about different types of work that people aren't used to looking at, like contract or temporary work, because they figured, oh, that's not stable. And so I wanted you to touch on that just briefly.
Absolutely. A lot of us grew up with the idea that anything with full-time benefits was just a little bit shaky or shady or disreputable, and we cannot afford to have that viewpoint now, because the only thing we have to sell to the next employer or client is our most recent experience. That's what they're interested in. What have you been doing? And so if you say, well, I'm going to take a full-time job at all costs, I don't care, as long as it's full-time, because that's secure. No, it's not secure. Full-time job is not secure here in the United States unless you have a contract, an individual employment contract, or a union collective bargaining agreement. We have something called employment at will in the United States, and I rail against this. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's good for people. I don't think it's good for the economy. I don't think it's good for American companies for their competitiveness, but anybody can be let go for any reason, with or without cause. As long as it's not a discrimination issue, you can be fired because you like the Cubs instead of the White Sox, or you prefer Elvis to the Beatles, or Lady Gaga over Justin Timberlake. You'll be gone. You could be too short. You could be too tall. It's completely absurd. You could have the political affiliation that doesn't suit your boss, and that's not right. That employment shouldn't work that way. But it does here in this country, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So how do we deal with that uncertainty? Well, we have to have our eyes open and be ready to jump to the next lily pad at any moment. That's not paranoia. That's just being awake. And by the way, our forebears, our ancestors did it. It's very funny that we live in a country that was founded by pioneers and entrepreneurs, but now culturally we treat entrepreneurism as a very exotic, scary thing. Oh, entrepreneurs have things that the rest of us don't have, No, that's not true. Our great-grandparents were all entrepreneurs, and they didn't even have or need a fancy French word to describe what they did. They just got up in the morning and fed the chickens, or whatever they were doing. And we need to get back to that idea that we're all entrepreneurs. I don't care if somebody employs you. You could be out on the street tomorrow, and we have to know that, and we have to build the muscles to be able to deal with that and, come up swinging every single time.
I think that mindset makes people much more resourceful should something happen, because again, like we're discussing, it's where people stay in jobs for 10 or 15 or 20 years that's not really happening in today's environment.
Not only is it not happening, but the jobs, the full-time jobs that give the best security in terms of that traditional, I will stay parked in this desk, for the next 10 years, that kind of security are also the jobs that prepare us the least well for this environment, because they encourage the person in the job to go to sleep. Learn the procedures, do the procedures, make your boss happy, get a good performance review, and go to sleep and be asleep and stay asleep in the matrix. And that's how a lot of working people are. And so a lot of folks liken the experience of reinvention, which is, let's face it, a nudge or a shock from Mother Nature. Reinvention only occurs when you either get a signal from the outside world that you have to change, because, like, for example, your job drops away, disappears. That's brutal. That's psychologically very, very difficult. Emotionally, financially, socially, it's hard. And you get your job ripped out from under you, that can happen. Or you can feel inside yourself the other reason for reinvention, I got to make a change. I'm dying on the vine here. I am withering. I'm not expanding. I'm not growing. I'm bored. I'm unhappy. I'm not recognized. I'm not appreciated in my work. I'm underpaid, whatever it is, or all of the above. Those are the really sort of the only two places where a reinvention energy comes from. And it's painful. There's no reinvention that's like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. It's just typically a tough situation that throws you into that state. But the power that comes from the exploration, that's what I want people to experience and really get into. Is like, wow, it didn't feel like a gift when I lost my job, but 6 months, 9 months later, I see that it really was a gift. It's happened to me several times, of course, in my life, and every time I was like, don't let this happen. Please don't make me change. Don't make me change my situation. And then it turned out to be fantastic, amazing. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't gone through a couple of these really tough shocks, but I'm not unique. Everybody's done it, where I was, curled up in the bed in the fetal position crying, right? The standard posture, reinvention posture.
And I think that's normal, though, you have to go through some of those hiccups, especially if from our generation, we were kind of like, wow, okay, there goes, stability. And then to look at things in a new way, it really offers a lot of hope.
Thank you, Marianne. It really does offer hope. What I'm trying to say more than anything else in this book and in my columns and, on stage and anywhere I go is you are mightier than you think. You've got it, mister. You've got it, ma'am, girl, my little sister. You have it. You've got everything you need to survive and thrive and have a brilliant career, even in this tumultuous new millennium workplace. But, you're going to have to grow some muscles just like you do at the gym or out in the garden or wherever you grow muscles, dancing to YouTube. You're going to grow muscles, and it's, there's some exertion of energy required, but it's wonderful, wonderful to feel that you've got them. And I hear it from people every single day, and they say, you know what, I got up and I walked out of a job interview today, Liz, and I would never have done that if I hadn't read your columns or read the book, Reinvention Roadmap, because I wouldn't have had the confidence. But these people were horrible, and it was insulting, and it was obnoxious in this interview. They left me sitting in a room for 25 minutes, no window. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where the ladies' room was or where anybody was going to come back and get me. And my body just said no. And the lady came back, and I just got up and said, it's been lovely to meet you. I saw a little farmer's market around the corner. I think I'm going to check it out. It's obvious we don't have a fit, but thank you for your time. And I was gone, and her mouth was hanging open in shock because people are not used to job applicants getting up and leaving a job interview. But this is a new day. You're going to do that at some point, and you're going to feel good about it.
Yep. You know what? And as an entrepreneur myself, I've actually done that to clients.
You have?
I had once, I had, it actually was a couple of years ago. Someone put me in a boardroom, and 20 minutes later, not there. So, it's asked, and they're like, oh, should be here soon. And
oh,
like,
yeah.
no, this
just
is
cool your
waste of
heels,
our time.
Marianne. Yeah, you got no place to be. It's a signal. It's a screaming loud signal. They don't have their act together. They don't appreciate your time and your attention. And so we only have time for certain people. We don't have time for all people. God bless all people, but we just don't have time for them.
No, it's a good fit for somebody else, So
exactly.
And just kind of
somebody who's a little not quite as far up the curve, doesn't have the self-esteem. I always say sometimes when you take a terrible job, it actually grows your self-esteem. And that happens to a lot of people. You go in there and you think, oh, I'm not fit for anything more than this right now because your mojo's depleted. And I talk a lot in the book about the Mojo Drop when you thought you had your mojo under you and then it's gone. And unfortunately, what happens to people when they lose their mojo is they don't think, well, I lost my mojo, but they think, oh, I just am a loser in general. I was just faking it before when I felt successful. I've certainly had those thoughts for a long time, and lots of other people have too. And then you realize, no. It's just I lost my mojo, and I have to build it back.
Yeah, and and that happens with anyone in any stage of their career. I was having coffee with some girlfriends the other day, and one's a senior VP for a Fortune 500 company, another one's a CEO, and we were discussing how for women, it seems more often that we have to transition jobs in order to get that pay raise or those benefits or whatever it is that we feel that that we're worth. Because a lot of times when we're in a career at a place, they kind of get a little complacent, and they're like, "No, we're paying you high enough as it is already." So it's an interesting discussion when you kind of look at this and how it hits, people from entry level to, if they're senior VPs, whatever.
No, absolutely. And, this is an aha that people have often in the reinvention process is they say, what I thought when I lost my job, which is often an impetus to, reinvent yourself, you lose your job. People that, my first sort of mental process was, what am I qualified to do? In other words, coming from fear, who would accept me? Who would accept me? What am I qualified to do, Marianne? What kinds of jobs could I get? So it's very need-based, which is completely understandable. You're bereft. You just got kicked out of your job. It's a terrible thing. And it's very, very stressful. So of course you're going to think, where can I find a little bit of safe harbor? Who will find me acceptable? And you kind of do the reinvention roadmap, and you look back at your path, and you start to, follow the steps, and you collect your dragon slaying stories, and you start to dragon slaying stories, or if you're against violence to dragons, it could be dragon training stories, But either way, you start to get your power, and you start to write in your Mojo Journal, which I talk about incessantly in the book, and there's hundreds of exercises. Get out that journal and write in it. And you start to remember that you have done a lot, and you've solved a lot of problems, and you've helped a lot of people, and you get to use your passion at work. Yes, you do. You have the right under the sun to be who you are and bring yourself to work. And that's why I do the stuff that I do, and that's why I wrote Reinvention Roadmap, the book that'll be in stores tomorrow, because it's reminding people that a lot of folks are not standing around them telling them how amazing they are. But in fact, they really, really, really are amazing and worthy and valuable and talented and vibrant and smart and funny and warm and random and all the things that make us human. And that's what we get to bring to work with us now in this new millennium workplace.
Mm. And what a better place you can be in than having the book and having it take you there. Now, I know that, and you touched on this a little bit, the Mojo Journal. Why don't you explain that a little bit for our listeners and what that's all about?
Well, thanks, Marianne. Right in the beginning of the book, Reinvention Roadmap, I say you're going to need a journal. You could write all in the margins, but it'd be very messy, and it'd be hard to read it later. So and this book, of course, is also sold for Kindle, so you can't write on your screen. Current technology doesn't allow. So I tell you to go get another journal. It could be any kind of journal you want. It could be super simple. You could steal one of your kids', black speckled decomposition books. $100, I think it costs $1, 100 pennies, at Target or wherever. Or you could get a fancier journal that you like. They have some beautiful ones at Barnes & Noble. You can get a journal almost anywhere. Or you could even journal online. If you like to keep your documents online and you don't want to write longhand, that's fine too. Some people prefer to just type into a keyboard and keep a document. Great, no problem. Then I have exercises throughout the book, Reinvention Roadmap, where I say, pull out your Mojo Journal and write about, what you loved to do when you were in middle school or when you were 10 years old. That's very significant because kids have good instincts. We know that what we like to do when we're kids is not an irrelevant fact to us as we grow up and get out into the working world. That should impact, that should influence what we do as adults. And when we are in reinvention and time sort of stops, and we have to look at all this stuff over again. What am I good at? What do I like to do? What am I going to do for money? It's scary because it's uncharted territory, and we're looking at things we may not have evaluated very often when we were asleep in the matrix, too complacent, as you said, in the long-term job or in our previous situation. But now we have a chance to look at that stuff and going back to childhood and looking at what we love to do and what we are good at and what we got affirmation for back then is very, very powerful. And more than often than not, folks do bring those childhood, early life influences into their career as they realize that they can, that they get to, and it's actually their choice.
Well, and for someone that's looking to open their own business and say, you know what, I'm taking I'm going to take all my all of the things that I've learned, and I'm going to open a business, probably consulting, let's say that. What advice would you give them to kind of help get them on their way?
Okay, great question, Marianne. First thing is, I say over and over in the book, we are all consultants now, every single one of us. My 16-year-old kid is a consultant. Every kid is a consultant. The only thing it takes to be a consultant is to be willing to do something for someone, an individual or a company or a church or a gym or a club or an association or a university, anybody at all, your neighbor down the street, for money. So we're going back to this sort of like make a buck mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. What could I do to make money? If you're a kid, it could be walking animals, walking dogs. Not a lot of people don't walk other animals, do they, Marianne? Ferrets. Interesting. Ferret walking business. You could walk dogs, make a little money, get used to the feeling of money in your pocket that did not come from a paycheck, because it's a different feeling, very different feeling. For people our age, it could be anything. It could be writing marketing brochures. It could be doing a newsletter for the church. It could be setting up an after-school program for your local rec center. It could be anything. It could be going down to the university and coaching students on their job search as they get ready to graduate for money. Anything. Sometimes volunteering can convert into consulting, and we say, I'd love to continue to help you here at the Academy of whatever, but, I've shifted my focus, and now I need to get paid. Don't even have to get paid a lot. It's stepwise. You're going to work your way up. If your mojo is not all that high, you're going to charge maybe a low consulting rate. Maybe it's laughably low. Maybe the first project you do is create a simple website for your sister's preschool where she sends her child, and you build them in cupcakes that first time just to feel stronger and to feel better about it if you feel tentative. Everybody feels tentative, of course, or they're doing something new, but you're going to step into your own consulting persona and begin to see yourself as a consultant. I don't want anybody to go out there networking in the community and meeting people and saying, I'm a job seeker. I'm looking for a job. That is not a strong identity because it's based on need. What you're going to say is, I consult in the area of, bookkeeping and financial accounting. I help companies, independent businesses, large businesses, whatever, set up their accounting. I help people with the copy on their websites. I write marketing brochures. I help people with public relations. I help people organize their files. Anybody that can work can be a consultant. And this is a conversation that I have with kids in high school and going to high schools and going to colleges and community colleges and older folks. Anybody can sell their services for money, and all it takes is a business card, which you can get at any Office Depot or online at Vistaprint, anywhere. You can have fun designing your business card, and now you're a consultant because you can consult under your Social Security number. You can set up a corporation if you want to. It costs like $50 online, but you can just consult as an individual using your Social Security number. And it's a great, great, great thing to do for job seekers because it gets you out of this mode and mindset. Somebody has to take pity on me and hire me. No. You are out in the landscape. You're out in the ecosystem looking for pain, which I also talk about incessantly in this book, Reinvention Roadmap. And when you see pain, you say, I wonder if I can help you. Perhaps we could have a conversation about that.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we could talk for hours on this. I mean, you're such a wealth of information on this topic, and unfortunately, we are out of time at the moment. Where can our listeners
of course, Marianne,
connect with you?
Thanks so much for having me on the program.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this has been just amazingly fun. And so where can our listeners find you and connect with you?
Well, let's see. They can, first of all, get the book in the bookstore or on Amazon. It's called Reinvention Roadmap. My name is Liz Ryan, Lizryan, and they can follow me and our company, Human Workplace, on Twitter. It's at Human Workplace on Twitter. Read the stories on LinkedIn and Forbes.com and, just be part of the Human Workplace movement. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marianne. We have a website. Good point. humanworkplace.com, and Human Workplace Movement is an international global movement to reinvent work for people, started in 2012, and it's actually just 4 years old, about last week, and millions of members around the world, and we're very excited to have people join us.
Oh. Well, thank you, Liz, for taking the time to be with us today and sharing your wisdom and expertise. We so greatly appreciate having you here.
Not in the slightest, Marianne. Back to you.
As we say goodbye to Liz Ryan, author of Reinvention Roadmap, we're going to pause here for a quick break. Stay tuned, because next we're going to talk about sacred quantum metaphysics. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
He's the change management expert, interrupting ordinary lives and making them extraordinary. John Register, experiential keynote speaker, went from track and field Olympic trials candidate and Gulf War Army veteran through a career-ending injury, an amputation, to winning the Paralympic long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia. Now he shows business executives and college sports professionals how to turn obstacles into opportunities. Book John to speak to your group. Kick off your new year resolved to create the new normal at johnregister.com.
Need an appointment with a world-class intuitive? Worried about health, finances, relationships, or career? Hire the woman $1 Million Executives hire repeatedly. Zen Cryer DeBrook, a tested, award-winning intuitive, is taking new appointments.
Zen's readings are very clear, direct, and actionable. They boost your momentum and productivity and get you on track and moving very quickly to where you want to be.
Get a fresh strategy that works, personally and professionally. Schedule today at appointmentwithzen.com. Appointmentwithzen.com.
For over 4 million people, the clock is ticking as they hope and pray for a miracle, waiting for someone to offer them a kidney and another chance at life. Ari Sittner answered that call. Ari is a social worker, therapist, rabbi, coach, consultant, and keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, The Kidney Donor's Journey. This inspiring story shares Ari's remarkable experience of faith, family, and kindness as he saved the life of a single mom with 3 kids. Find The Kidney Donor's Journey on Amazon and visit Ari at akidneydonor.com.
I know we are unlimited, not only because I healed myself with chronic disease in only 3 weeks, but because I know what has helped thousands of my clients transform their own lives. My book, A Short Path to Change, 30 Ways to Transform Your Life, offers 30 easy and quick tools you can use to help transform any aspect of your life. Visit and subscribe to my site, JennyMannion.com, JennyMannion.com, for free gifts, including a guided healing meditation and the first chapter of my book. I look forward to offering you easy ways to help you get clear for the new year.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest is quite an individual. Rich Haas obtained his psychology degree from San Jose State University in California in the 70s. He has a dual certificate for hypnotherapy, is a certified hypnotherapy instructor, past life regressionist, and is certified life between life therapist. Now, Rich is here to talk to us today about his new book, Sacred Quantum Metaphysics. So welcome to the show, Rich.
Thank you, Marianne.
Well, thank you. So what is Sacred Quantum Metaphysics?
Well, when I was doing my own research and enlightenment. I got through that stack of books most of us have that we're going to get to, quote unquote, someday. And well, I actually got to mine that included quantum physics and Einstein and multidimensional physics. And as I was reading through that, I realized that a lot of the new scientific discoveries were verifying what's been around sometimes for thousands of years in ancient wisdom and metaphysics. So I combined the two disciplines of modern science with metaphysics and put it into the book Sacred Quantum Metaphysics. It combines 24 updated metaphysical principles and 12 scientific breakthroughs since Einstein. And then we put those together at the last third of the book where people can actually make wonderful changes to their life and in their future by combining those two.
When you're getting all this information together and you're doing your own research on your personal journey, was that what inspired you to write this book?
Absolutely. Well, what I came to the conclusion after you boil down all these things, and people get intimidated by the word quantum and things like that. People should know it's very easy to read and understand. There's no scientific jargon. It's everyday language. Everybody who reads it, if you read any of the reviews, they'll tell you it's easy to read and easy to understand for any level of intelligence or background. So don't get intimidated by that. But what I really realized is that we finally have the science on, there's been a metaphysical principle. We create reality with our thoughts. And all of a sudden I understand the science behind that. How does that work? And so I put together all the basic pieces so people could understand it. And then at the very end of the book, there's 19 very concrete steps that anybody can use to put these principles into practice to change their lives and make their future a better one, perhaps even help change society for the better. So it's putting everything together in one place finally so people can understand how they can actually utilize the metaphysics and scientific discoveries.
So if someone's new on their journey and they're like, well, I'm just kind of new on the spiritual path, I don't know what end is up, I just want to kind of see what resonates with me, they can pick up your book and it will give them information regardless at what level that they're at.
Absolutely. The first part of the book is 24 metaphysical principles that have been updated with modern research. For instance, meditation. People have always heard about meditation, but there's actually research from Harvard University where they studied meditation for many decades and actually proved that it'll cure almost every disease and actually will change a person's genetics. And so it's documented, but if people are interested, it's Herbert Benson at Harvard Medical School in his research in the relaxation response was his first book. So it's things like that. If no matter where somebody is in their spiritual journey, they can get the basic information and then have it updated as far as what's happened in the last 50 years around those issues.
Well, I know in your book you talk about forgiveness as a precious gift. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit for our listeners?
Well, sure. In our society, there's the attitude that somehow we forgive for another person. I've heard people say, well, my religion demands that I forgive, so I forgive this person. That's really not the metaphysical principle of forgiveness. We forgive to help ourselves. We release our own resentment, anger, all those things that are holding us down in very low vibrational emotions. And once we forgive, we release that. And it's not saying that we agree with or condone what the person did at all. It's just that we say we're going to go ahead and release what is causing us our own personal suffering. The resentment, the hatred, the anger, all those things are are eating away at us. There's another part of that, in self-forgiveness, because sometimes it's easier to forgive somebody that has harmed us than it is to really give ourselves a release. And part of the metaphysical principles is showing us that we're here on this planet to learn from our mistakes and to make those mistakes. And we kind of get this idea we should be perfect, but none of us are. So there's also the self-forgiveness part to release some of the things that are hanging around in our own philosophy and our own mind. For instance, resentment comes from the Latin refeel. If we're refeeling something over and over again about something that happened in the past, then we need to get rid of that in order to release our mind and our soul from having those negative emotions continuing day to day and week to week and on into the future.
Well, and I know in your book you cover a lot of topics. In fact, pretty much if anyone has a question in regards to the afterlife, near-death experiences, hypnosis,
spiritual journey. Yes.
Yeah, you've got it all covered in there. You're hitting all the bases. Mm-hmm. When you were doing your research, was it, did you keep seeing the repeating pattern of, I know you said that the science now has been, you kind of is justifying things that we've known for some time. Are you seeing like the repeating pattern of, yes, here it is again in this research, and here it is over here in this old text? It kept popping up, and then that's how you determined the different topics that you were going to cover?
Well, a lot of times it's just a matter of terminology, semantics. For instance, string theory says that the universe is made up of vibrating strings. And metaphysicians for millennium talked about how we need to raise our vibrations, or that the vibrations determine what kind of matter we have, or even where we are on the astral plane. Well, as you go through this string theory, there's 5 consistent subsets that are all consistent for 11 dimensions. Now, dimensions are the modern term. Astral planes were talked about for thousands of years. So a lot of it is just trying to sort through some of the different terms and putting it into perspective on, Einstein talked about the 4th dimension being time. Well, now in the appendix of the book, there's talking about what is a dimension? How does that work? But we're also combining it with the ancient wisdom that has been talked about, and how it's been verified by some of these new discoveries in the last century, basically, since Einstein.
And so if you have somebody that's like, gosh, I got the book and I have more questions, do you offer workshops or coaching that people can connect with you to kind of just get a deeper experience, or do you have other CDs and tapes that they could dive into?
Well, part of what I've done, and we can talk about the website in a minute, but on there is a way for people to connect with other metaphysicians, and that's my term for people that are putting this metaphysics and science into practice, so they can get together and they can talk about, this is a question I have, and I can answer that. There's also a list of future events where, like in a couple of weeks, I'm speaking to a very powerful scientific group and explaining to them the connections to ancient wisdom in Boulder, Colorado. So people could go there. It's open to the public, but they could actually see a presentation, and then there's always a question and answer period. If somebody can't be there, then we can do it through Facebook or the website. I'm always willing to talk with anybody. I answer emails, and I will be there for anybody who needs me. I don't have time now to actually do personal hypnosis journeys with people, just because the book has just consumed so much of my time. I think I spoke to 50 organizations in the last 2 months, so
that's
you
a
can
good problem
see
to have.
it's been very hectic, but I'm always available to answer personal questions, and but I just don't have time to put 3 to 4 hours for somebody's personal one-on-one session. I apologize. Maybe in the future. Yeah, and workshops are in the process. The book's only been out about 3 months, and so we're still trying to get through some of the initial excitement, but when that dies down a little bit, then we'll be scheduling workshops all over the country. So that's another reason to go on the website and put your name in as joining the metaphysical community.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, I know in your book you also talk about manifesting miracles. How does manifesting work with all of this?
Well, that's the last third of the book is basically how do we put those two together. But part of what I was looking at is for thousands of years they've talked about how metaphysicians or sages and spiritual masters could transmute matter. Water into wine is a very good example, or levitating, walking on water, or the miracle of Hanukkah where they created energy out of nothing. Those kind of things have been around for thousands of years, but nobody has really understood how to do that until Einstein and some of these geniuses came up with some of the new scientific discoveries and showed us how to actually make those changes. So when you get to the 19 steps in the back of the book, it just makes it very clear how to, you decide what you want to accomplish. Perhaps you want to have more abundance or material wealth in your life. Well, there's a chapter that talks about how to create wealth out of nothing. And then if that's your goal, then you would just walk yourself through the 19 steps, and then you'd be able to manifest it very easily and very consistently. And then once you get all your personal things solved, then my hope is that we can begin to solve some of the greater society problems. Our politics is just such a mess right now. Our schools are still back in the 1641 era, 17th century, things like that. And we need to evolve mankind so much faster than it has been before. So once people get their personal life in order and find their own personal happiness and manifest the things that they need to make their life happier, then I'm hoping, people start going to the Akashic records, say, and understanding anti-gravity particles, and then we can put those together to explore space. Things like that are available once we put our mind to it. And if there's other people in your area or even people that have the same goal, that's what the metaphysical community is for. So people with specific goal can work together. Perhaps people care about the planet, so people could get together and figure out through the Akashic records and science and metaphysics how to turn pollution into fertilizer. It's the same as water into wine. It's just at a bigger scale. So I'm excited that this might be a way for mankind to just take one big step in their evolution.
Well, and there's so much information, again, in your book, so people can really read what resonates with them and keep going through the entire book. I mean, there's really, you hit like every topic here, which I really appreciate. So one of the things I have a question for is, what is the one question that you get all the time at these events that you're doing?
Well, it's interesting is that some people really desire the information there, and so they're really interested in how to use the law of attraction and create abundance in their life, but they don't have the money to purchase the book at this point. So they're looking for a way to get that information so that they can have some reserves and then buy the book and then do some of the other things. I'm really excited. I just found out Jefferson County Library in Colorado has 4 of the books on their shelves right now, and people throughout the nation in their own library system can request a book through the prospector system and get it sent to them wherever they are from the local library here. So that to me is one of the gifts to be able to pass this information on to people that may not be able to go out and spend the $16.99 on Amazon or $9.99 on Kindle. And so people that if they're interested in that, and that's one of their goals is to try and alleviate their own personal financial situation, and they can just get it for free and read it. And I'm pretty certain they'll want to have their own copy someday and be able to underline and dog-ear it and walk themselves through the 19 steps over and over again. But who knows? So if it doesn't happen that way, I'm still glad to be able to help another family turn their life around and have a better future.
Oh, without a doubt. So I know in your book you also talk about real healing. Is that possible?
Absolutely. In our society we have since Descartes and the duality of separating out spiritual from the material, we've gotten away from the mind-body healing, and that's one of those things that we need to get back to. I mentioned Herbert Benson. He found that meditation can cure almost every disease and change a person's genetics. But we also, in our society, we actually exclude the mind from our medical research. You might have heard it called the placebo effect. What they're doing is they're finding a way to take the mind away from the medical studies. And of course, what we're left with when the mind is removed is pharmaceuticals and surgery. And when we know that about a third to a half of the people will be cured just by the mind, and what we should be doing is saying, okay, a third of these people are already cured by the mind. Let's find out why the other 2/3 weren't cured by the mind, instead of trying to exclude that third from the research, and it leaves us only the physical manipulation of the body through drugs or surgery, that sort of thing. So it's absolutely real. We know it is. They go to a lot of trouble in our society to eliminate the mind-body cures from research, but we need to understand that almost everything can be cured by the mind. If we have time, we could go into an example.
Oh, please do.
Well, they did a study with knee surgery where they took broke everybody randomly into thirds, and 1/3 of them they gave them total reconstruction surgery. 1/3 they took and they scraped the knee and tried to eliminate any roughness. And 1/3 of the people they just put an incision into the knee, making them believe that it was they had surgery, and they found out that there was an equal amount of improvement in movement and pain relief from all 3 of those groups. So certainly it's a lot easier on the body to have the mind cure it by thinking it had surgery than actually going through it. But that gives you an example of some of the very innovative researchers and how they're looking at how we can actually help people without putting them through a lot of bloodletting and surgery and pharmaceuticals that almost always have some kind of negative side effects. I guess I should make it clear that we made a mistake in Descartes' time in 1641, eliminating all the previous cures, the mind-body cures, and trying to rely on just the physical cures. We shouldn't eliminate, out of hand reject all the advances Western medicine has made either. But we need to get a better balance and find out, certainly sometimes a pharmaceutical actually can help a person avoid some negative consequences or balance out hormones or, whatever there is. So I don't want people to think that it's 100% negative. It's certainly things that we need to take a second look at and find out, well, what is the best way to help the patient instead of trying to figure out, we have to concentrate on the physical manipulation of the body like Descartes led us down that path.
Yeah, I think there's a shift that's actually happening in the planet where we've got these great young people that are coming forward who are they're really focused on more of a healthy approach for their patients. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yeah, and that's very encouraging. Part of the problem is that they're up against a medical groupthink where people have been basically indoctrinated when they went to the university, and they say that there is nothing non-physical that's important in our world. They call that philosophy materialism. And people have been indoctrinated, and a lot of those people, even though Einstein and Heisenberg and Max Planck and some of these other amazing people have said matter is a fleeting concept or part of energy, they still concentrate on the material. So we need to kind of get over the centuries of indoctrination and bring us back to an open-minded look at things. And that's going to be very, very hard. I know that's why I'm excited to speak to the scientific group in Boulder on the 18th, is being able to make some inroads into that. Because these are people that I know have been indoctrinated in that. Perhaps you've heard people say consciousness is only just random aberrations of neurons in the firing of the brain, and there is no consciousness. Well, Einstein and Planck and many other people have said consciousness is what actually creates the three-dimensional world. So it's actually backwards from what we thought it was, but it took a lot of very innovative and interesting discoveries like quantum physics and string theory and Einstein's space-time continuum and things like that to actually open up the science. Now the problem remains that a lot of the scientists haven't heard about it, haven't opened up to how that and the ramifications of all those studies, what that does to their basic assumptions of the only important part of the universe is the material. And we know one of the scientific discoveries is that think of all the matter out there on the planet. We got a beautiful big Earth that has 7 billion of us roaming around, and you can fit 300,000 Earths in the sun, and the sun is just one star in the Milky Way, and there's hundreds of billions of galaxies like the Milky Way with suns and stars and, the suns and planets and moons, and that's a lot of matter, but it's only 4% of the universe. The other 96% is the metaphysical unseen.
So, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg on all this great information, Rich. Where can our listeners find you so they can follow you and get connected with you?
The easiest way is www.sacredquantummetaphysics.com.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.